Just like hidden gems aren't always found by those who search them, so too there will be towns that are forgotten by those who pass through them.
Hey sightseers, Sightseeing Sally here. Today, I'm checking out a small town here in Wisconsin called Lena. And the reason I thought I'd show you Lena today is because, one, they're celebrating their 100th anniversary, and two, because I thought it'd be cool to share with y'all what life is like in a small town, a typical Midwestern rural community on a Sunday afternoon. To start things off, we're at the Lena Community Veterans Memorial Park. Now back probably 50 years ago, 100 years ago for sure, but back then, the town park would have been a happening place on a Sunday afternoon, especially on a day like today where it's beautiful outside, no wind, the sun is shining, and you can hear the cicadas buzzing in the background. This, of course, would have been after church got out. Now, standing up close to the church, we can see a few dates inscribed: 1882, 1898, and 1940, which leads me to believe this church has been a part of the community probably since the beginning.
After doing some digging, I found out the story behind the dates. In 1882, the first church was built. It was originally located by the Catholic cemetery about 1.5 miles east of Lena. Then in 1898, a fire broke out and the church burned down. Its replacement was built in town at the present site. Then, again in 1940, the church was destroyed in another blaze. It was the 6th fire to break out in that building.
Now that we know the story behind these dates, let's move on to somewhere else. Now, something I've been noticing as I've been perusing the streets here, all these signs in different locations are marking the places I suspect have been a part of Lena for at least 100 years. Now, if you look down past the church, you'll see a school, which, interestingly enough, is not the original school for the Lena School District.
That building no longer exists. However, there is another school that people frequently associate with Lena.
That school actually happens to be off of a really main highway. And if I get a chance, we'll go over there so you can see it, because the original schoolhouse, it's a one-room schoolhouse, is still standing.
Built in 1911 on land donated by a Belgian settler, the Lena Road Schoolhouse was constructed to serve the needs of the surrounding rural area's farm children. A traditional one-room schoolhouse, grades 1 through 8 were taught here until 1959 when it closed.
Looks like it has the original bell, too. Too bad it's not open to the public. Keep your fingers crossed. Maybe one day we'll be able to get inside. Hey sightseers, I dragged you out here because today of all days, the Lena Road Schoolhouse is open to the public. If you're wondering what that's all about, this place happens to be on the National Register of Historic Places, and it's rarely ever open. I think it's maybe open once a year, and that's for this community rummage sale, small town rummage sale that happens here. So whenever I get a chance to check out a place where you can actually go inside, it's like I'm in. And the stars must have been aligned in my favor, because it just so happened I was driving by today and noticed that they were open. So I ran home, got Marty because he loves the rummage sales. I wanted to go see the inside. And with this being on the National Register of Historic Places, any opportunity to see the inside, I'm like, I'm in. Well, let's follow Marty on inside and see what it looks like. Now, obviously, because they have the rummage sale going on, they've got stuff in here that's not from back in the old school days. But if you look around, you can see they've done an excellent job of recreating what life was like back here in the old days. Over here you got the old school desks for the children, chalkboards, teacher's desk, and my personal favorite, the maps. Oh, the maps of the world.
You know, this map's old. Union of Soviet Socialist Republic, USSR.
How old do you think that is?
50 years old or more.
I'm surprised they don't have one of them old stick pointers, you know, the wooden stick that, now that I think about it, actually look like a cue stick for a pool table. The teachers were probably getting together and shooting pool after hours with those things. The other really cool thing about this historic schoolhouse is that they have pictures on the wall of some of the children that went to school here. Seriously, how cool is that to be able to walk into a historic place and see the people as they were back in the day? And then this table has some really interesting artifacts, items that they would have used in the classroom back then.
Here you can see an original photo that was taken inside the schoolhouse some years ago. According to the school's current owner, some of his own family attended this one-room schoolhouse prior to it being closed. He also mentioned that the flag we see here, plus the bookcase and all the books in it, are original artifacts of the school.
I just learned something new today. An interesting fact about the original Pledge of Allegiance.
Published in the fall of 1892 for school children to recite on Columbus Day, the original pledge had no mention of God in it.
And then you can see the antiques and different things that they have for sale as part of the rummage sale. A lot more room in here than I thought there would be. Kind of cool. I think this is a part of history, rural American history, that we don't see much of anymore. And it just so happened that I got to see it and share it with you today. Before I go, I just want to point one other thing out. Actually, two more things. First one being the water pump that you see here, and the two little white and red buildings that you see back there. Those are all original to the property, to this building. That is how they got A, water, and B, went to the bathroom. Because you know, back in the day, there was no such thing as indoor plumbing. Oh look, it's an old school desk sitting across the street from the Lena School District. I don't know about you, but the sight of that brings back a lot of memories. Now next to the park is the Lena Public Library. And you know me, lover of books. Can't pass up an opportunity to check out the local library. And although this building was built in December of 2006, the Lena Public Library has been around since 1929. From what I found online, it was originally located in Pye's drugstore, back when librarians were paid $2 a week. Imagine that. Things have sure changed since then. And given the proximity of the little free library to the public library, I don't think the citizens of Lena are too worried about the little library overtaking the public library. Now, one of the things I love about small towns in the Midwest is how friendly the people are. And as it just so happened, I got to meet the village clerk. Her name is Shar, and she was kind enough to take time out of her day to let me inside here and here. Two buildings of historical significance to the folks of Lena.
A former Seventh-day Adventist church and a log cabin.
The first church to be built in the village of Lena is now the historical museum for the village. While this building over here is an original log cabin that used to reside on the outskirts of the village in what is now known the town of Lena.
Eventually incorporated as a village in 1821, Lena was originally known as Maple Valley. When problems arose with mail delivery and freight due to there being another Maple Valley already in the county, the name was changed to Lena, supposedly after the postmaster's daughter, or even possibly his wife. Different sources conflict on that account. Despite the conflicting accounts on the naming, one thing's certain. Similar to some of the other forgotten places we've explored in America, Lena got its start as a rural farming community with help from the railroad. To this day, freight-bearing trains still pass through the village, though they no longer stop here. Being able to see inside both of these historic buildings was a rare treat. I only wish I had more time to learn about the history inside them.
Much like a lot of the other small towns we've visited, this one reminds me of lazy summer days filled with backyard barbecues and drinking lemonade. Now the thing about Lena is that, like so many other small towns out there in rural Midwestern states, is that when the highway came in, it bypassed this town. And actually, I remember a time when the highway used to run its course through town. We're actually driving the original route of that highway. And these would have been the businesses you would have passed on by as you drove it. And at one time, this building had an old-fashioned ice cream parlor inside. I've never been in there, but Marty has, and he said that it was really cool. It had the old soda fountain inside, just like on Andy Griffith. Now that's an old relic. I'm talking about the wooden shoe. Now it's quite possible that your favorite sightseer might have been in the wooden shoe at one time. However, if you're going to ask me if I got my shoes filled at the wooden shoe, I might have to plead the fifth. And actually, I suspect I've been in the Bavarian Inn. It's just, it's been so long, I don't really remember. But what's interesting to note about these two iconic Lena locations is that before the wooden shoe was the wooden shoe, it was a dance hall and then later a hotel. And while most people know the Bavarian Inn as a supper club and bar, the building was originally built in 1898 and started out as a general merchandising store. Now apparently the house behind me has an interesting background story. Originally built in 1898 by J.C. Grant, M.D., it was to serve as a hospital. Unfortunately, Dr. Grant and his dream died 2 years later. If we walk further down Main Street, we can find remnants of other historic buildings here in Lena. Here we have the old Nicholas C. Netzer house built in 1888. The M. McGuire building built in 1903, and the Mathy building built in 1916. Actually, it could be pronounced Mathy or Mathy. That's the problem with knowing the names when you're not from the area. But you could be from Lena and you could be watching this video, so if you know, let me know in the comment section below. The remains of Emil's barber shop, and the type of old truck you would expect to find in a small Midwestern rural community. This building apparently at one time housed a furniture store and a funeral home. Speaking of funeral homes, this building was one for a while as well. It started out as the Gamble store, later was purchased and used as a funeral home, and then was converted to housing and office space. These two buildings are also remnants of Lena's early history. The brown one on my right used to be a restaurant, and the white one on the left was a hotel and bar. Now here's a place that some of you might recall. If you're from the area and have driven through Lena a time or two. Right, Marty?
Yeah. I remember this gas station 25 years ago. You used to pull up here, and it was one of the few where the attendant would come out and fill you up, and then after that you go to the cheese store next door and load up on your cheese.
When was the last time you had your gas pumped for you? Oh wait, never mind. I think if you live in New Jersey, you get your gas pumped for you all the time. But here in the Midwest. So the question is, if you're from the Midwest, when was the last time you got your gas pumped for you? Let me know in the comment section below. And while the gas station may no longer be serving up gas, the cheese factory and the cheese mart are definitely still in business. Does that really surprise anybody? As you can see, there's not a whole lot of action going on Main Street today. I'm pretty much the only person walking around, and either that's because there usually isn't a whole lot going on Main Street on Sunday afternoons, or it's because it's hotter than a witch's you-know-what out here. And nobody else but your favorite sightseer is crazy enough to be out in the heat today. While the highway no longer passes through Lena, one thing's certain. There's still plenty of traffic that drives on through. But of all the people driving through, I wonder how many actually stop and check out Lena. Maybe that's a question best left answered for another day. Maybe right after I get myself some lemonade. Until next time, this is Sightseeing Sally sharing with you the sights and sounds of small towns. So Marty, what'd you end up buying?
Nothing.
Really?
Nope, ain't dragging any more junk home.
Well, that is totally surprising. I thought for sure Marty was gonna score something. I did. I got a free shirt.